Yo guys, what is up? Max in our first Descendant video, and today we're going to be going over my updated guide to Gley. Now, Gley is a character I've made a ton of builds for. However, in Season 3, Episode 3, which if you weren't aware, just launched in the first Descendant, they actually reworked Gley. Gley had been kind of falling behind in the meta, and so this rework is to bring her up to par with the other characters. And oh boy, did they give her some cool things. The one that I wanted to focus on, we are going to be covering multiple builds in this video, but the one that I really wanted to highlight is her reworked Blood and Iron Transcendent module build, which transforms her fourth ability into a kind of auto-aim dual pistol mode where you just blast everything on screen. You have 100% crit rate. You hit like a truck. And this build that I've set up now gives you basically 100% uptime on her 4 spam with tons of crit, tons of damage. It's super satisfying to play. Hope you guys enjoy the build breakdown. This video is sponsored by the First Descendant. Huge thanks out to them for sponsoring this video. Hope you guys enjoy. Let's do this. All right, so the very first thing that we need to talk about is Blood and Iron. Now, this is a old Transcendent module that's been now changed to work differently. So Blood and Iron is actually relatively melee focused. It changes a few of Gley's different abilities. Your first ability, Frenzied, instead of giving you a gun damage increase, now gives you a movement speed increase, which 80% movement speed, awesome. It also gives you melee crit damage, melee range, and also reduces your recovery. Pretty standard. Sensory now still works for the most part the same, but it also gives you additional damage on melee weapon attacks. And then your fourth ability is totally transformed. This is Rampage. It still consumes your life force the same way that her fourth ability Massacre did. So you still need to build up her custom resource in order to use this. It uses custom resource. You can see I deleted 2 bars there to use that. But it now does a massive amount of skill damage, hits enemies multiple times. A big kicker on this is while you're using this, you have a 100% skill critical hit rate, just a flat out 100% skill crit. So you do not need to build any skill crit chance at all. You just guarantee crits, which allows you to build into tons of damage. You also have lower damage reduction, so you're more susceptible to dying while you're in this form. And then her passive also changes a little bit. But that's kind of the main kicker here. Now, one of the big things to understand is in order to spam this nonstop and use it constantly, we need to be able to build up her life cost or life power of life pretty easily. And so the way that we've got this set up is once you start using your fourth ability, you're just going to be able to spam it on enemies, but you need to be able to build up that resource from the start. And that's where the passive comes in. On using a melee weapon to attack or defeat enemies, you have a chance to drop life spheres, which upon contact grant power of life. Now, the kicker here is melee weapon attack or defeating enemies. So, for example, let's say I don't have full resources here. You can use any sword. We're going to be using the Hypernova for this particular build, but you can use the Hypernova. And as you can see, when I tossed it into this group of enemies, it's like constant spinning AoE damage builds up that life force. And so it's very, very easy to do that and also maintain our life force. And you can actually do that while you are in your fourth ability. So for example, you can do this and you'll be getting life force back as you're shooting, and then you could call it back. Could do that and then go back into your fourth, and what that allows you to do is even on single targets where you don't have enemies to kill to feed your life force, you can just spam your 4, which does a ton of damage. So that's kind of the overall concept of what we're doing here. So for our mods, we're obviously using Blood and Iron. That's what's going to transform our fourth into Rampage. And then our whole goal with Rampage is to be able to spam it. So we're going to be using MP Conversion and Nimble Fingers. This sorts out a ton of our cooldown. Pair that with Focus on Non-Attribute, and we have enough cooldown to spam this off of reset. So we just keep going and going. You could technically put on Multi-Talented here. I found it to be overkill. We have enough cooldown to never actually need this. You are going to want to make sure that you get a gold roll of cooldown on your reactor. But if you have our setup, You don't need this. If you don't have any cooldown on your reactor, you might want to put on multi-talented, but I found that we didn't really need it. We're also going to be going into double crit mods. I'm rocking skill concentration with extra crit damage, front lines for even more crit damage. We don't really care about the crit rate. This does have a max expandable range of 200%, so we're rocking one range mod with skill expansion. I wanted to not die, and you also are standing still and take 50% increased damage during this, so I opted for an HP mod to make it more comfy. We're rocking our focus on non-attribute for extra cooldown and more damage, and then potent collectors like the last piece. This just means that every time that we defeat an enemy, we have a chance of getting our custom resource back. This is really important for the ability to spam the fourth ability. It helps a ton. And the last little thing that is technically optional, you could opt for like more damage here and go for emergency measures. I went for some extra quality of life to be able to spam as much as possible, and that is maximize conservation. Because their fourth ability already has like almost 5k modifier, putting on more modifier here, if you add like 60% modifier, you'd go from like 5,000 modifier to 5,060 modifier. It's hardly a damage increase at all. And so I went for maximize conservation. This is going to lower our skill power modifier a little bit, which does absolutely nothing, but it like more than cuts our cost currently with our full setup in half. So normally it would cost us 30 power of life to cast. Now it only costs us 13. And we're pairing that with our Ancestor module, which has skill critical hit damage and skill cost reduction. Both of these allow us to spam our fourth ability a ton. If you don't have an Ancestor mod for Gley, I'd probably just throw emergency measures in here just for that extra 27% crit damage. But getting an Ancestor mod with crit damage, ideally is the main set you're looking for, is really, really good. For the rest of the build, you're mainly going to be wanting to rock out with the Hypernova out so that if you ever get low on your resource, you can use it. You can also, once you have a resource and you're comfortably killing enemies, swap to the Peacemaker to get the damage buff from it. Would be really, really solid. The mods on your Hypernova don't really matter because we're not using it for damage. We're just using it to proc her life force. So getting things with like additional attack chance and some extra range is solid, but it's like builds plenty of resource without really even modding it at all. And then the Peacemaker, you can rock whatever you want on it. For external components, I still need to get a better reactor. For this, I was just rocking skill cooldown and non-attribute boost ratio. In a perfect world, this would be skill cooldown plus skill crit. We don't really need the boost ratio. We have 100% crit chance, so more crit boost is awesome. For the external components, we're rocking the mage set because it gives us a whole bunch more extra skill damage. For our Arche Tuning, we're going and pathing down and picking up enhanced skill power, extra range, reduced skill cost. We don't need skill critical hit rate, so we can path up, grab the extra cooldown, extra skill critical hit damage, and then I went for Arche Chain Catalyst. Here on skill hit, inflict Arche Chain Catalyst on the target. This is to help with single target. Your single target isn't as strong as like other Descendants with her fourth ability, so this will make enemies more resistant or less resistant to your damage when you're spamming your 4, and you have 10 seconds of this. So you get to get a little bit better single target damage. If you're just doing like weak content, non-attribute cohesion would also be really, really great here. I opted for Arche Chain for it's a little bit better at like harder content. So that is our Arche Tuning board. For our Inversion Reinforcement, the season like just started, so I don't have all of the things unlocked, but from like an earlier perspective, grab Focus Boost for additional skill cost, Blade Extension for additional range on your melee weapon, and Selective Cellular Stimulation for additional HP regen. You could optionally swap this for Enhanced Regeneration so that you could recover a little bit more HP from orbs. I think this is fine. I don't have the full points to unlock this yet, but that is our inversion. In this patch, they also changed the way that Massacre works. They changed a whole bunch of Transcendent modules, and I'm not going to get around to making guides for all of them, but I did kind of want to update our weapon platform build, as it's probably my most used setup on Gley. If you don't know what this is, basically just using Gley as a gun Descendant. Gley's signature ability allows her to just not consume ammo with her third ability, and that is super, super nice for high firing weapons and weapons with like rocket launchers, basically. And so she can spam those better than pretty much anyone else still, even though other characters do have infinite ammo. Gley is still, in my opinion, the best at the infinite ammo shenanigans, even though she does get out damaged by other characters. But they changed super senses. Now, for an infinite ammo Gley build, there's basically two options for like guns. The first is Predator Instinct. Predator Instinct is pretty cool. It changes her one ability. Instead of giving you 30% firearm attack, it gives you 42%. So you get a little bit more firearm attack. However, for our gun build, we're going to be swapping to super senses. This was changed so that you can apply bleed to enemies. And then when you're shooting enemies with bleed, you deal additional damage proportional to their bleed stacks. However, the real kicker here is it also changes Gley's third ability to give her more firearm crit damage with her guns, more weak point damage, and a movement speed buff. So you get 30% movement speed while aiming, 30% running speed, and 30% sprint speed. And that's really, really helpful, especially if you're using a big, like, hulking gun. So you're no longer slow with Gley, which was one of her issues. And now you can just run around shooting rocket launchers at much higher speeds than you could before, which is really nice. But you also get some extra crit damage and weak point damage. And so that is what we've opted out for her like gun build. My personal favorite for her is still the Thunder Cage. Thunder Cage got buffed recently. It's absolutely insane. Good at mobbing and good at bossing. But the other thing that they added to Gley is they added a new trigger module called Focus and Expansion. I'm going to pull out just a normal gun so you can see this. But on Gley now, this trigger module allows us to do AoE damage based off of our HP. Quite literally just mirrors what Serena does. And so when we have a bunch of HP, which we're going to be building kind of anyways, which we'll talk about in a second, but you can now see that I do AoE damage with this Ancient Knight. So it's not quite as strong as Serena's gimmick, but non-AoE weapons still now do AoE, and weapons that do AoE damage do even more AoE damage because we've got this trigger module that's just going to constantly be pulsing out damage scaled off of our HP. Now, we're scaling HP not only for the Focus and Expansion mod, but also for the fact that they added a new additional damage multiplier based off of our HP on Gley. So this means that your firearms that you're going to be shooting get an additional damage multiplier. That additional damage multiplier caps out at 210%, and that is your max HP times 0.60, which means that you need to hit 35,000 HP to hit the maximum threshold of damage that you can receive from this. On this setup, we've got 36,000, so we're just slightly over, but you will be able to get your like full HP out of this. And with that, anytime that you're doing like firearm explosive damage, you're going to be getting additional damage and additional AoE, which is very, very, very nice. So we've now got basically two new additional sources of HP and damage scaling, which helps a ton with Clear, and we're solving some of her issues with like movement speed because she could just move faster. So for the build, I went with HP Collector just because I like feeling very, very tanky. I want to keep my HP up. So we're using HP Collector, which whenever we're killing enemies, we restore health. Super nice, especially because we use health for our abilities. We're rocking Stim Accelerant and increased HP. These two with our like tuning board and our components will get us to 35,000 HP. We're rocking double cooldown mods. It's really important that we can loop this. Right now, the cooldown is 9 seconds. The duration is 14.9 seconds. So we can very comfortably loop this. We're also rocking skill extension and maximized duration for big quality of life. So we have to cast this less often, stay shooting more often. We also are using shot focus for more firearm damage. I put on focus on non-attributes so that if we do want to use our 2 or our 4th ability, we do more damage, but a big part of this is for a little bit of extra cooldown. And then the last mods are kind of up to you. because we're not like fully sending into skills, there's not a ton that's like super worth rocking. I just threw on Walk a Tightrope here so that if we do drop below HP, our 50%, we can get that extra firearm damage. This isn't going to be up all that often, but it's not a ton that you really need here. For the rest of her build, you're looking for a duration and cooldown reactor. We're going to be using a two-piece ascending set for the reduced skill cost, but mainly because these have 646 HP, we need to hit 35k HP, and these help a ton. And then two-piece shell crusher for the additional fire rate. For weapons, the main weapon I'm using is the Thunder Cage. These are the cores and stats we're rocking on it. This is the build I use for Gley. We're rocking an infinite ammo build with sharp precision shot because she doesn't need to reload. And then on the restored relic, this is what we're rocking, built mainly for elemental damage and multi-hit. For your Arche Tuning board, you're going to want to rock this. This gives us some like firearm crit and firearm crit damage for weapons that we build for that, but also a bunch of like multi-hit and multi-hit chance for weapons that we want to rock with that. A little bit of HP. And then your mutant cell slot, I misclicked and picked the wrong one, and I don't have any more boxes to open of it. But you're looking for a Almadine Survival Instinct. This reads that when you use an HP absorption type skill, you get Survival Instinct to yourself, which we are going to be using with R2. And then when you activate that, it gives you another 15% movement speed. So you'll be zooming around with this build with your built-in movement speed plus the movement speed from your mutant cell slot, which should help a ton, especially when you're using like rocket launchers. Guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. I will catch y'all in the next one. Take care. Peace.